as usual. Hello, people. Let me just write in the chat hi, just to make sure that it works because you guys are important. So I need to say hi to everyone. And yeah, welcome to this stream where we're gonna do fun stuff. There's a lot of different things we could do, so I don't know what exactly we'll do. It depends on what you guys want to do. I planned on doing some drawings, animation thing goes because everybody always asks about textures and whatnot, so I can do that. But sometimes people are like, "No, do some rigging," so I could also do rigging. I don't know what I'll do, or I will show a bit of compositing too. So who knows where this stream will go? Only you can decide. What was amazing? Oh yeah, the short film by Mercury Filmworks and a bunch of lovely people. Yeah, it was a pretty cool thing. Okay, yes, everybody's here. Do you have any questions for me while I'm here? Who knows? Okay, so here I have an animation that I have. And one thing I want to show is how easy it is to change your style when you work in Harmony. Like there's so many different styles you can get. This is one of the style. This morning for fun, I just did a new pencil texture. So I'm gonna show it. So if I select my lines that are on my drawing, I swear I named that drawing. I don't know why it's not named anymore. Okay, I don't know. It was named, I swear. So that's my animation layer. If I go to drawing, you're gonna see I have line work and I also have colors. Like that. This is a basic of Harmony. It's you always have your line art on one level and the color on another level, and there are all part of this. Okay, there we go. So I just said hi to everyone, and let me just see if people ask a question in the chat. Let me filter all the messages of bad audio. Okay, I think everybody's okay. Let me see on Twitch. Yeah, okay. I was about to talk about the textures in these artwork. So nice textures is always something some people look for when they do these kind of animation. Again, let us know if the audio gets bad. I don't know. And because it's easy to get a style that is a bit more vectorized, and there's nothing bad with vectors, just that if that's not what you want, then it's bad, right? Because you can have your animation be fully vectored and that's okay, but in Harmony it's so easy to have a different look with different kind of textures, like that. And this morning I even made a new texture, so that's what I wanted to show you guys. Well, I mean, I have lots of textures, but I'm gonna import my new texture. It's this one, and it's a very, very subtle texture. And sometimes what I want to show is that sometimes your texture is going to be a bit too squished on itself. So what you can do because depending on how long your texture file was, because for example, if you use the texture files from Harmony, like from your pencil tool, sometimes don't quote me, but I think by default they are like pixel large, even the pencil lines, so they're very small, which is why you see here that it's all very, very, very close together. Because to do this animation, I did use Harmony's default like texture, so they are a bit smaller. The texture I made this morning was for a high-res project, so like the line is kind of like this big. So if you take this, let's say that this was my texture. If I take this and I make it as large as this one, then perhaps it's gonna look a bit cramped up together. So what you need to do is you need to take this tool called the Edit Gradient Texture. And if you take that line, only for the pencil tool, right? Not for the brush tool. If you take this, maybe I take it here. Yeah, if you take this and you change these little settings, you can either shrink it more or you can make it go longer and kind of like spread it apart, which will help make your texture look a bit less cramped up together. Like this. It's already getting better. There you go. Now it's much, much smoother and it looks better. So then you'd have to do that for your whole thing. And this is only if you change the texture, because if you're just using the default, if you're just drawing as you go, then you're not going to see that because the texture will kind of adapt to your drawing. This is just if you're like changing the texture for another. So I'm just going to make it a bit less crammed together. It is a very big texture that I use, okay? So that's why it's a bit crazy. There we go. So now my texture is much, much more relaxed and will look better once I render everything. Of course, when you render, don't forget to put color behind. That's why I have a color card here. And yeah, pretty important. So that's one of my new textures that I like to use. However, you know that Harmony, usually the colors are done in pure vector. So that means that even if you have a very textured line, like I had here at the start, let me go back. Okay, like I had here at the start, under it, the color will always be very, very sharp. So let me just lower the opacity so I can show you that the color underneath will always be very, very, very sharp, which is sometimes what we want, but sometimes we want something different. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways you can kind of solve that. If you just want the surrounding to be colored, there is one way. But if you want everything to be a bit more mixed together, you can do that with another technique. So I'm going to show you two techniques today. The first one will be to kind of try to make your art a bit more mingled. And to do that, we can use a turbulence node. Oh my God. All right, so before I get into the turbulence node, I'm just going to check out everybody's chat. I think we're good. And let's see on YouTube. Any tips about composing light and shadows? I do have tips, and I'm going to show you that in a moment. That's a good idea. Okay, so back to our little business. What I'm going to use is a turbulence node, and with that, I'm going to make my color here a bit more wavy when it's going to be colored. Okay, so I need my color art, like a cooking show. I was already ready. I already have this line, this color art filter. But then what I want to do with it is give it a turbulence. Now, if you don't know what a turbulence is, we do have documentations on it, and you can check it out. Otherwise, I would explain you quite fast what it is. A turbulence, basically, you connect it to something, and it will turbulate it, which will kind of means that it's going to use a grain, and it's going to kind of bend it with the grain. Okay, so if I take this turbulence, and of course I go into render view, I will be able to take it, and I'm just going to randomly put some amount in it and some frequency, and you're going to see it's going to edit my whole image. So of course now it's just my color, but if I did that on my whole scene, let's do this like that. Oops. I'm not on the right display as usual. It's coming. Yeah, so then that would do this to my whole scene. So of course this looks silly, So that's not what I want to do. But with this, you could be able to make your line art more wavy. Of course, this is way too much. I'm going to turn it back to 0. And instead of testing it on your drawing, what you can also do sometimes is make the turbulence work with a turbulent noise. So the turbulence, oops, and the turbulent noise are pretty similar. So if I open them side by side, you're going to see that they are pretty similar. So the turbulence is there, the turbulence noise is there. So they have almost the same thing. So like frequency, offset, and blah, blah, blah. Actually, if I do this, you see it's pretty similar. As well as a noise type and a fractal type. So before we go back to our character, what I will use is the turbulent noise itself. So for now, that's the only thing I have connected in my scene. Just my noise. And then I'm going to take my noise. And by the way, you don't have to connect it. Sometimes you can just use this window. But since we're on a stream and I want everybody to see well, I'm going to use this into the camera view so that everybody can see something. Okay. So turbulent noise, I'm going to click on it. Right now, there's nothing. So if you want something, you have to give it a frequency. It's like trying to tune into a radio station without the station. So you need a frequency. I'm going to go to frequency 50 and see what it has to give us. Amazing. I have static. Yay. And then that static, of course, you can edit it with the complexity, the gain, the subscaling. I'm not going to dive too much into the details there, but these will allow you to change how your image looks. Be careful when you play with the complexity, because the more complex your image is, the heavier it will be. So don't do anything more than like 2 or 3. If you start to do like 15 complexity, that's way too complex, but it can look very nice. But usually, like, be mindful. Like, ask yourself, do I really need 15 complexity? Sometimes you do, and that's okay. But just make sure that you're not just putting random numbers because you think it looks nice. 100, this is like my computer cannot even process it. And there's almost no difference between 100 and 15. So, actually, I think there's no difference. I don't know. Like, don't put too much in there. I'm going to set mine back to 1 because I want this to be fast. And, there's a bunch of things you can customize in there. Go get the documentation. It's going to help you out. What I want to show you is the noise type and the fractal type. So the noise type, you have Perlin, you have Simplex, blah, blah, blah. You have many different ones. And then you have the fractal type, which you have also different ones. Okay, I'm going to reduce my frequency just so we can see some of them better. If you want something watery, little tips there, it's almost often like a turbulent twist is going to do wonders. Depending on which noise type you choose, you can get some very, very cool result. And this is all generated. It's not like a heavy bitmap image or something. It's all generated, so it's very nice to be able to play with it. And of course, it can be animated if you ever need to. So what I'm going to do today is get a fractional Brownian. And wait, I had it there. Set it to Perlin. I'm just going to play a bit with my frequency. And for now, I'm going to set it to 50. And I just want to show you that they're going to have black and white and values in there. So if I take this turbulent noise and I use its settings into my turbulence, then it means that I will be able to transform my image with a similar grain. Okay, so I'm going to go to my frequency, put the same thing. I'm going to go to my complexity and make sure it's the same. Yes, it's the same. And then Perlin and fractional Brownian, it is the same. So now I have my turbulence and my turbulent noise that are similar. I'm going to use my whole drawing to turbulate it. I'm going to put it here. So I put them both one on top of the other just to show you how how they're going to relate to each other. So for now, there's not much going on. This is because my amount is set to 0. So the turbulence noise, the one who's going to transform my animation, has something different than the turbulent noise. So in the turbulent noise, you have only the frequency you can edit, but in the turbulence, you have the amount. So the amount is how much you want the noise to mess up your animation. So if I take my amount for now and I set it to 10, for example, you see, it's going to bend my animation following the texture you have underneath there. So if I set it to 100, it's going to follow it even more. This is way too much. Sometimes you just want to put 5, and you see it's going to make it oscillate or wiggle just a little bit. And yes, sometimes that's just enough. So I'm going to show you with and without. So this is with it, and without it's going to look something like this. Okay, so I hope everyone sees the difference. So this is without, and this is with the turbulence. This also works with different techniques such as like rigs and whatnot. So it's a very interesting technique to use. Okay, so we have Rasta Chair asking, "Hi Z, every time I'm rigging with onion skin, it makes my drawing vanish and only the deformer is visible. Is there a way to make the drawing visible with the deformer and the onion skin?" Okay, so the question is interesting. Onion skin and rigs generally don't go together. The onion skin is a tool for hand-drawn animation, allowing you to see your drawings in the past. If you use the onion skin with deformers, sometimes it's not going to yield the result that you want, at least for now. If anyone has issues with this, you can write to this address and they're going to try to help you out. I'm going to write it in the chat. But generally, if you do cutout animation or rigging, you should learn quickly not to rely on the onion skin a bit too much. It's not the best tool to use. So you're better to flip, because the onion skin, even for hand-drawn animation, you're better to learn to flip than learning to do onion skin animation. Because sometimes when you rely too much on the onion skin, this is when your animation gets a bit stiff. So cutout or hand-drawn, always try to flip more than you use the onion skin. In hand-drawn animation, the onion skin really shines to do close in-betweens, like very, very close drawings, which you don't need to for cutout because usually the computer takes care of the very, very close in-betweens. That's one of the main quality of cutout animation. So yeah, I hope this was helpful. And now I'm going to go see if there's any questions on Twitch. Yeah, if the Twitch doesn't work that well, you can use the YouTube link. It sometimes works better. Okay, question time from Digio's Art. If you remove a default brush in the tool properties, is there a way to get it back without having to reconstruct the brush? You can reload the brushes from the software. I can send a link toward the end of the stream on how to do that. But basically, the brushes of Harmony are stored within the preference folder in your computer. Like, I don't want to navigate my computer on stream for reasons, because I have way too much NDA stuff on that. But it is possible. You just have to reload the default preferences of the software, and you're going to get your brushes. This is why whenever you use Harmony or any software, it's always better to make a new brush rather than modify the existing one. Always be careful. I am a lazy person, so I hate to restore my preferences to default. So each time I get a new Harmony version, I do one quick thing. I go here and I export all the brushes that I want, and then if I screw them up, I can import them again without having to blow up my preferences. Yay! Right, where was I? Yeah, we were talking about the textures and the lighting and the whatnot. So I'm gonna get rid of my turbulence that is behind my drawing because it's a bit ugly. But now you see here how cool and wiggly it looks. And instead of having to me draw it, it's pretty faster to do this with the turbulence. Then again, I'm gonna show you without it what it looks like this. So it's very... I done. Oops, I changed the drawing. Ah. You see, very smooth, kind of boring. And then if you go here, you will turbulate your whole thing. But now it's kind of turbulating my whole animation, which is not what I want. I only wanted to do it on the color art. So that's why I split my 3 art levels. I'm just going to use a little composite right here. Unite them. So color. Whoop. I'm going to take my color and make it wiggle with my turbulence. See how much fun that looks? Yay! She's like wiggly like that. Without it. With it. Right, you get it now. And then if I put my line art on top, whoop, I'll have my line art appearing on top. And then my overlay layer for the next little drawings. So this will all give it a bit more personality on a dime, because it's very inexpensive to put a turbulence on your animation. And of course, like I said, you can play with the settings. What I have is pertinent fractional Brownian with a frequency of 50 and an amount of 5, but you can change the amount to everything you want, anything you want, really. The more amount you have, the more turbulated your animation will get. Right, so at one point it's too much, so I just make it less crazy. The other fun thing you can do, it's a trick that I really, really like, is you can take your color art and I will give it a matte resize. So what the matte resize will do, if you guys watch my YouTube videos, I did mention it a bit last week, but the matte resize is a great tool. What it does is it will make any of your layer either smaller or bigger. So for now, I'm going to unconnect my line art overlay and I'm going to keep my original color art. But my original color art, I will give it a matte blur just so that it becomes white, so that you guys see the difference between my color art and the one that's going to have the matte resize. Right, so that's my default color art. And then this is going to be the one with the matte resize. So I'm going to connect it under it. The one with the matte resize, I'm going to go here and give it a value of 10. And it's going to make it kind of go overboard. You see here? It makes it go overboard. So if I remove my matte blur just to show you, I'll have my default color art and then the kind of expansion of it. You can either make it expand or also shrink. So I'm going to put it in front of my color art. And I will give him like a negative value, because you can do that. Negative value. Oh, and I'm going to give this one the white matte blur. It's coming, it's coming. It's taking a little bit of time to calculate. I think I broke it. Yeah, I think I broke it. Oops, that was too much. But what I like to do with the matte resize that I have here is I might need to restart my scene. That's what happens when you have 10 of them open at the same time. Let me just fix that. Oh, okay, it works. Just my old computer was not having fun with it. Okay, so then again, matte resize. Gonna make it not go to 100 that time or something. And you can shrink stuff with it. So what I like to do is I like to kind of make my color art expand. So I'm going to make it expand just a little bit. Maybe like 2. And then you can use this, but only make it appear where the line art would be. right? So that if you have a line art on your thing right there, and you want your texture to kind of feel where the line art is, you can, use the line art and just have your matte resized color art appear, but only where your line art is. So to do that, I will give it a cutter on my newly created color work, and I will use my line art to cut my color. Right. I think that's it. So like that, just so that my line is opaque. And then I can decide to have a transparency node on my line to make it transparent. But underneath, the color will be full. I'm going to repeat so that it makes sense for everyone. That's sometimes a technique I do when I want to get a transparent line. But I don't want the surrounding here to be transparent as well. So that's why I use my color art and I make it bleed out, like so. But then I use my line art to cut the part that bleeds out so that it's only appearing where my line art would be. And that's sometimes what I do to make my animation a bit more unique and different. I'm gonna check if anyone has questions. Colors look amazing. Thank you. Thanks for this information. It's my pleasure. That's why I'm here. Hello, where is Mick today? So Mike Morris is only there once in a while, just like me. Maybe you're gonna come on the stream tomorrow or another day, and it's gonna be someone different. So it's never the same host, never the same artist. So yeah, stay tuned. If you want to see Mike Morris, I don't know when he's coming back, but you can look. We have a schedule on, or you can reach out to our Twitter or something and see what the next month's schedule is. Okay. We won the plane adventure to go to. The plane adventure was over yesterday. We finished it. I cannot wait for you to see it in the video on demand. Okay. And while I'm here, might as well show you another trick that I do really love to use. You see how I use my color art to fill my line art? Another thing you could do is color your line art with your color art. So that is something that I did talk about on my channel last week. But hey, doesn't hurt to repeat and doesn't hurt to have it live, because if you guys have questions, now I can actually answer them, which is great. I will keep my I will not keep my transparency on my line art, but what I will do is I will give it a, how we call a color scale. Yeah, color scale. Oh my god, my memory is not going well today. Color scale. What this will do is because since I'm going to use my color art to color my line art like this, I'm going to use a cutter again, and oops, like this. I'm going to have my color like this. Oops. I'll have one side that is just my color, and the other one will be the one that is expanded. And the expanded version of my color art is what I'm going to use to color my line work. Okay, like that. Let me just tidy it up a little bit. So I have my line art, and then I'm going to use this to kind of color itself, like so, which is very cool. So what is happening now? Just to repeat, because it looks complicated, but it's not. I have my color art. I expanded my color art using the matte resize. And then this expansion of my color art is what I'm using to color my line art. To do that, I'm basically having, it's like if I had only my expanded version of my color art, and then I'm gonna cut it with my line art, like so. Ta-da! So this is what I'm using to color my line work. Okay. like that. However, like we saw before, the color art by default, if I don't put it into my line art, you see it's very, very sharp. It will look textured if it uses the outside of my line art. But because of where the color meets, if it's in the middle, it will look too sharp. So I do know that in my videos I mentioned that you can blur it. So that's one option that I'm going to show you right now. So I'm going to just put a blur on my thing. I'm going to go here and I'm going to blur it. So then I'm coloring my line art with the blurred out version of my color art, which can, on its own, just like that, give some pretty neat result. It's going to make it look a bit more foggy, a bit cool. I rarely use it like that because I think it's too foggy. What I do like is to get a color scale and put it there as well, maybe before the blur. You can just put it there. Get a color scale and just pump up the saturation a little bit. That's a lot, but I just want to make sure that you guys see it. Maybe I'm going to lower the values a little bit. Oh, that's way too much. Maybe put a bit more blue. That's perfect. Okay, so now you see it's like that. I can also make it a bit darker, like I said, but not too much. Okay, so that's better. That is how I would normally use it. Like, just make it a bit. It is still colored by the line art, so I didn't have to color all my line work. It's just the line art is still colored with the color art, but it does give it a little more of a darker look, which I like. Okay, so then if you didn't want to use a blur instead because it's too foggy, nothing stops you from using the techniques that we used before. So if I go get my turbulence, did I remove it? No, it's there. My turbulence from before. Remember when I made my color art a bit more wobbly? Well, nothing stops you from using this instead. So instead of putting a blur between my matte resize and my cutter, I can just use a turbulence. Now my liner work will be a bit more wiggly. And this is what I'll use to color my line art. Yeah, there's so much things you can do with that kind of coloring for your line work. So I just think you should try stuff, have fun. And yeah, there's so many things you can do. I'm going to go check the chat and see if anyone has any questions. And oops, like this. Let me go see. Okay, so it's all good on Twitch. Oh, and my pleasure, Rastachir and Chester Golden. It's always a pleasure to give you some cool informations. Okay, but I'm not done. There's more you can do with those. We talked about the blur. We talked about the turbulence. The other thing you could do that is kind of neat is that you can get your line art and you can offset it a little bit. There's many ways to do it. You can have your animation like this, and then you can you can make a copy of your animation and then put it into the line art instead. So for now, it shouldn't give me any difference. Oh, it does, because here I have a peg, right? Don't forget that I have a peg here. Boop. There you go. Now it shouldn't give me any difference. And I will remove my camera just so that I can remove my peg, so it's simpler. There you go. So now everything is the same size. Don't need a peg anymore. So what you can also do is you can then get a peg on top of your copy that has your line art. So this is the same drawing. If I do something on one, it's going to do it on both. Right? Okay. Just to make sure that everybody gets that. Then if I have my peg, you can use your transform tool. I'm going to use mine as animate off because I don't want to put any keyframes. And then I can take my peg and let me just remove that thing. Thank you. Please go away. So then I can take my peg and I can move it a little bit. So now I offset it my line work. This is not suitable for every style, but sometimes it can look very, very cool. Because it can allow you to, or you can also use it to move, instead of moving your line work, you can use it to move your color work. Like it's more or less the same. But then it can allow you to get these very cool little effects. Like that. Okay, and now what I'm going to do, which is even crazier, is you can use this, but still have it appear within your color art. And for this, you would just need another copy. And then this thing, you can cut it with the original that doesn't have a peg. And is it like that? Yeah. So you see now here, it doesn't overflow. So it will remove what I have here, but it's not going to overflow like it did here. So it means that I would still use the same shape as my character, but it would prevent it from going over and spill from my line. So you're going to get empty zones inside, but no spills outside by just taking this and either putting a cutter here or being lazy and just doing this. So it's going to give you an empty here, but no overspilling. So it's kind of a bit of control. So that's what I love about working in Harmony. It's that there's no one good recipe. It's so easy to just take a finished animation and just give it like so many different styles. Whenever I teach a Harmony class, that's one of my favorite things, is when I teach compositing or introduction to Harmony, sometimes we have a bit too much time if people are too fast and stuff. So what I like to do is I give them one frame of animation and I'm like, composite it in 5 different ways, and then we're going to look at them after lunch or something. And it's crazy how much, with just these tools, if you give them to people, with just these small nodes, crazy how much different things people can do with the same frame of animation. So you're going to blur it, or you're going to turbulate it, are you going to offset a bit of the lines? Because on top of offsetting, and you can also shrink it. You can have the line work appear behind the color. You can have the color transparent, but not the line. You can have the line glow, but not the color. So many things you can do. So that could be an interesting thing to do in the future for a stream. Maybe give you guys a little image and have you composite it to your liking. Right. So let me see if anyone has any questions. Oh, we only have 15 minutes left. Time flies so fast on you guys. With you guys, I mean. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So no questions. It's okay. I still have a lot of things to do and to explain. Another thing you could do with the turbulence that a lot of people don't know is you see here I have a texture. I applied this texture just by painting it. So that is beautiful, but it does take a little bit of time. So what you can also do if you're in a hurry, or if you want to use it on a character that is not your main character, is because textures are great, but textures are expensive. So if it's your main character, yes, paint the textures. But what if it was a character that is in the background? Maybe you don't want to spend too much time doing frame by frame colors on him, right? What you can do is, instead of having the textures like this, you can have a kind of like a paper texture you would put on everything. So if I go here and I get a new layer, actually I don't even need a new layer. I can just go import my images. I already had a texture prepared for this. Here it's a little very, very normal free texture I found on the internet. It was free, did not steal it. And you can go here. I can import it, and like this is what you would get, like to put a texture on top of your animation. You can do that, but that is usually sometimes expensive because you have to get the texture. It's heavy and blah blah blah, and you can use it on your character. Here I'm gonna just cut it on everything. Oops, because it's easier. This is so cute. I love this with the texture. It's nice. Anyway, I can do this to have my texture on it, and then, even though it's you can you can composite it using the blending node, which, by the way, in Harmony 22 got a very nice quality of life update. So if you go to the blending node, in the past there used to be a super long list of a lot of nodes that were not working well, a lot of modes, that were not working as perfect as others and stuff. So the team curated the list, and now they're amazing. They work great, reliable, and much closer to what you would find in other softwares as well. So then if you go to the render view, you can use the blending node to make your texture blend in your character. So the blending, you have multiply. Sometimes I like to use subtract as well. Where is it? Subtract. Because it could give some cool result if you lower the opacity a little bit. By the way, to lower the opacity, you have two choices. Either use the node, which is always a better option because you can animate it and then your team actually knows what you did with this. Or you can also use the textures default into the thumbnail view here. You can use the opacity there. If you're working on your own, you can kind of use this. If you're working with a team or in a studio, I really don't recommend doing compositing directly in your timeline like this with the opacity of the layer. Always use a transparency node, because then once you're done with your effect, you'll be able to take it, cut it, paste it into your library, and reuse it, no matter what the texture is there, which is useful because you're going to see now. I'm just going to reset it to multiply because it did look great. Yeah. If I have my texture here, instead of using the expensive texture, maybe your studio wants to use the same blending as they have with the expensive texture, but for a background character, they want to use, instead of a texture, they want to use a turbulence. Turbulent noise that I'm going to use it here. I'm going to connect it there, and you see, well, this does look cheap because I didn't play with it. But if you play with the settings enough, you can get some very nifty, cool results. But before I dive into this, I just want to show you something quick. I'm going to take my turbulent noise and just bring it up and bring it near its cousin here, Mr. Turbulence. So turbulent noise and turbulence are not the same. They're not the same color first, and they don't have the same name. One is a turbulence, and the other one is a turbulent noise. One of the main differences is that one is dark blue, the other one is light blue. In the chat, does anyone know the difference between light blue and dark blue nodes? I'll give you 10 seconds to answer. Let's see if someone has the answer for that. What is the difference between a dark blue node and a light blue node? Five seconds left. Do we have an answer? I think there's a delay, so I will give the answer. The difference is that light blue nodes are element nodes, which means they're tangible. You can take them in your hand. Dark blue nodes are effect nodes. They're like ghosts. They live in a weird dimension where you cannot really grasp them. They can stick to something, so they can possess other nodes, but they cannot exist on their own. They need other things to latch onto. Which is why the turbulence, you cannot see it on its own. It needs to turbulate something. That's probably not a word, but I made it up years ago and I still use it every day. And the turbulent noise is, a noise. So it does have a physical being. So that's why I can use the turbulent noise to appear on my art. I couldn't do that with the turbulence, right? Look, it wouldn't do anything. even though they have the same settings. This is because the turbulence doesn't have any visible. Okay, so then turbulent noise. If you play with it and you maybe instead of a fractional Brownian, I'm going to use a twist, and then I can use maybe less frequency. You can get a cool texture like that. You can make it bigger, and there's a lot of the different looks that you could get. So if you get back to the fractional Brownian, I just wanted to show you the twist because it's easier to see. But if I go back to the Brownian, and this time I do give it more complexity. Let's go with 3. Maybe 5? Ooh, that's starting to look great. So you see, now it's starting to look a bit more like paper. I'm going to give it a bit more frequency, maybe. 25. We're starting to get something. What about less? Oh, I like this. So with less frequency now I have my, it's because if you have less frequency, then your spots are bigger because you have, okay, that's the way to remember it that I always teach to my students because I did forget to tell you about that. Frequency, one way to explain it for people that are not that used to it is how frequent will your motif appear within your square. Okay, if I have 5, it's like consider that a motif will appear 5 times in your square. That's not exactly what's going on. Okay, I'm just trying to explain it in words that are easier than the documentation. Okay. If you want to be a compositing artist, go study the actual terms and how they work. Okay, now I'm talking kids stories here. Okay, so let's say you have a design, it would appear like 5 times in the square. If you do 100, then it would appear 100 times. So that's why it's going to be much more. But it's not exactly 100 times. It's just that's how much it would have. And if you do 0, then you have nothing. It's not there. If you have 1, you're going to have 1 huge dot. And yeah, so that's why I'm going to leave it to 5. It was beautiful. So 5 is a good number. And after that, if you want to play with that noise, you can also use a brightness and contrast. No, contrast, come on. Yeah, contrast can work. And just to show you that, I will have my turbulence going alone, just so that we can see what's going on with this. This is regular contrast. You can use your contrast node to make your oh wait, I'm not using the right one. No, I don't like this one. I prefer to use this one, especially on stream because it's faster. There we go. There we go. Okay, so you can make your image a bit darker like this. You can heighten the contrast, which will kind of lower the grays. It's going to be more black and white than gray. And if you put everything, you're just going to have black and white. If you lower your contrast, you're going to have a bit more of a gray area. No pun intended. Yeah, so depending on how smooth and feathery you want your textures to be, you can play with the contrast. You can play with the brightness. If you have something very, very bright, what I like when the brightness is big is that you still get the gradient that the contrast is going to give you. But then your darks are not as dark, but your whites are sometimes going to form big splooches of like oversaturated thing. And I do like it for like textures and stuff. I think it looks great. You don't have to use it. Not everybody likes it, but I do. So I'm going to use it. And it's nice and it's cool. And then depending on which blending node you're using, it's going to change the result. So that's what I like about compositing, is that there's so much things you can do. And if you want to be a full-time compositor, there's so much resources you can read on and learn from. It's always great to experiment on your own, but it's always great if you can ask people questions or look at tutorials. But just don't look at tutorials that just do like, take the brightness and set it to exactly these. Like, that's not the kind of tutorials that I make and that I like to watch. sometimes you can, if you want to do compositing or just animation in general, try to find a tutorial that's going to explain to you what brightness and contrast is, or what these blending nodes do, because it's great if you can just cycle through them and try to find the one you like, which is how I started, which is great to start. But if compositing is really what you want to do, or you have an interest in it, go deep. Go search a bit deeper and look for what these parameters actually do. I watched a tutorial once that explained to me what add and subtract did, and it changed my life, because now I shade my art from a completely different way. And I think that's what I'm gonna end the video on, because I only have like 3 minutes, because I don't see any questions. So I'm just gonna keep going. So the last thing I want to show you is that whatever the software, one thing I like to do when I shade, let's say that this new drawing is my my shading drawing, is you can use, let's say that I'm gonna take a orange color, maybe like that. I'm gonna make a big sploosh on my art. If you take that orange color and you give it a blending node, like this. Oh, now it's set to multiply, but you can have it be at add, and you can also have it as subtract. So I don't have time to go into too much of the details of what it does, but basically when you have it to add, that's what I use if I want to shade my animation or my art using only one color. So I will use I would use maybe this drawing here to do my highlights. Let's say I'm doing some quick highlights like this. Very quick, like that. And then on another drawing layer, I could use the same color, but instead I'm going to do the shadows, like that. Then again, I'm doing it very quick. But when you're done, you can use the same color when you draw, so it's faster. But if you have one blending node set to add and the other blending node set to subtract, then it because the subtract kind of like subtracts the color and give you the other values, then you're gonna have a very cool blue light, because orange is on one side and the blue is on the other side, so that's why you get this cool effect. And I think it really makes them shine well. And of course, I'm going to use a transparency node on those to make it a bit less visible, like that. And that's usually how I would shade my art when I want to be very fast. And let me see if anyone else has any questions. Oops. And clean up that little node view a little bit. Dude, we've been places today. We've done a lot. And yeah, I think that's it. So with that, I will tell you all goodbye and have a wonderful week.